Kyoto, Japan. A young samurai named Teisha collapsed during training, not from physical strain, but from something far deeper. His master, Yamamoto Sensei, stood over him and said calmly, "You are tired, not because your body lacks strength, but because your spirit is burdened." Teisha was confused. He trained harder than anyone else. He slept less, pushed further, and never slowed down. Still, he felt hollow, empty, drained, and burned out. At the same time, elsewhere in Japan, Miyamoto Musashi, the legendary swordsman, fought duel after duel. He trained relentlessly, created art, wrote philosophy, meditated for days, and never showed signs of exhaustion. Over 60 life-or-death duels. Never defeated, never burned out. How? Here is what few people explain. Exhaustion does not come from what you do. It comes from why you do it. Musashi understood something modern people have forgotten. Energy does not come from effort. It comes from alignment. The real question is not how to rest more. The real question is whether you are walking a straight path or running in circles, draining your spirit with every uncertain step. Osaka, 1640. Teisha was 19 when he arrived at Master Yamamoto's dojo, determined to become a great samurai. He had talent, discipline, and ambition. Yet within 6 months, he was exhausted in a way he had never known before. This was not physical fatigue. He could handle that. This was heavier, a pressure in his chest that sleep could not remove. He woke up tired, trained tired, ate tired, and slept tired. "Why am I like this?" he asked his training partner, Kenji. Kenji shrugged. "You're not the first. Many students arrive with fire and leave as ash." That evening, after a brutal sparring session where Teisha lost to a student far less skilled, Master Yamamoto approached him. "Walk with me." They walked silently into a quiet garden behind the dojo. The sun was setting, casting long shadows. "Tell me, Teisha," Yamamoto asked, "why did you come here?" "To become a great samurai." "Why?" Teisha hesitated. No one had ever asked him that. "To bring honor to my family. To prove myself. To be recognized." "Stop," Yamamoto said, gently but firmly. "You came to prove something. To seek approval. To be seen." Teisha felt exposed. "That," Yamamoto continued, "is why you are exhausted. You're not training to master yourself. You are performing for an audience that is not even watching." Yamamoto placed a small stone into Teisha's palm. "Each time you train for approval, you add a stone. Each comparison adds another. Each moment of hesitation, overthinking, or trying to impress, another stone." He mimed adding more until the weight felt real in Teisha's mind. "You're not tired from training. You're tired from carrying stones that serve no purpose." Teisha looked at his empty hands, yet still felt the weight. Miyamoto Musashi, Yamamoto said, fought over 60 duels, many to the death, and lived to old age without burning out. "Do you know why?" Teisha shook his head. "Because he fought to understand himself, not to prove himself." He carried no stones. His energy came from walking a straight path, not from chasing validation in circles. That night, Teisha could not sleep. He realized his exhaustion had followed him his entire life. Every attempt to be the top student, every effort to be liked, every achievement meant to impress. None were truly his path. The next morning, Yamamoto announced, "Teisha, you will spend 1 year learning Musashi's method. Not sword technique, energy alignment. The practice of Judo, the way of walking alone." "But master," Teisha protested, "I came here to learn how to fight." "And you will never master fighting," Yamamoto replied, "while your spirit leaks energy like a cracked vessel. First, we seal the cracks. Then we fill the vessel." Teisha bowed, unaware that this decision would change not only his training, but his life. The next morning, Yamamoto led Teisha into a storage room filled with equipment. Clothes, weapons, scrolls, tools. "Take what you need for 1 year in the mountains." Teisha gathered extra clothes, a spare sword, books, tools, cooking supplies, blankets. After 20 minutes, he had built a massive pile. Yamamoto watched quietly, then said, Now remove everything that is not necessary. But master, I might need. Miyamoto Musashi wrote. Yamamoto interrupted, do nothing that is of no use. Every possession is a weight. Every attachment is a chain. Reluctantly, Teacher removed items. Half the pile disappeared. Then more. Then more. At last he stood with one sword, one set of clothes, one blanket, one bowl. This, Yamamoto said, is the first principle of inexhaustible energy. Remove everything of no use. They sat in a quiet grove. Musashi lived simply, Yamamoto explained. He slept on floors, traveled barefoot, owned little. People thought him strange. They did not understand that energy comes not from having more, but from carrying less. Yamamoto drew two figures in the dirt, one bent under a massive boulder, the other walking freely. People carry invisible boulders, every insult, comparison, worry, and unnecessary obligation. Then they wonder why they are exhausted. He listed Tishi's stones, proving himself to his father, comparing himself to others, fear of judgment, useless perfectionism, constant validation seeking. Each one pressed heavy in Tishi's chest. Musashi asked one question of every thought and action. Is this useful to my path? If not, he discarded it. This is Dudo, Yamamoto said. Not lonely alone. Walking your path without the weight of others' expectations. But master, Teacher asked, how do you know what is useful? That, Yamamoto smiled, is what you will discover. His voice deepened. Across history, warriors learned this truth. Energy comes from alignment, not effort. Exhaustion comes from carrying weight without purpose. And even in times far beyond this mountain, people will struggle with the same burden. Those who learn Dudo, who choose alignment over exhaustion, find not methods to push harder, but wisdom to walk straighter. This is not history, Yamamoto said. It is practice. Teacher bowed, feeling he had joined something greater than himself. A lineage that understood true strength is born from simplicity. Good, Yamamoto said. Now, we begin removing your stones. Awareness. Yamamoto gave Teacher a single task for 7 days. Notice whenever you act for approval, comparison, or validation. Do not judge, only observe. By the third day, Teacher was alarmed. Every sword form carried comparison. Every meditation sought recognition. Every meal was rushed out of fear of judgment. This, Yamamoto explained, is why you are exhausted. Your mind splits into two, the one acting and the one performing. That division drains energy faster than physical labor. Musashi learned this at 13. After his first duel victory, he did not celebrate. He returned home alone, not from humility, but from integrity. When you train, only train. When you eat, only eat. When you rest, only rest. Teacher failed repeatedly. His body moved, but his mind wandered. That split, Yamamoto said, is the leak. Musashi fought with total presence. No performance, no reputation, no internal debate. That is why he did not tire. Slowly, Teacher experienced moments of unity. Action without commentary. Effort without strain. Teacher noticed his energy vanished when facing stronger opponents, yet increased against weaker ones. You are comparing, Yamamoto said. Against the strong, you feel inferior, another stone. Against the weak, superior, another stone. Musashi never compared. He wrote, nothing outside yourself can make you stronger. When you compare, you abandon your path. Yamamoto blindfolded Teacher for sparring. When comparison disappears, he said, energy returns. You could no longer see who you were fighting. Without visual comparison, you could only respond to what existed in the moment. Tishi's energy steadied. He moved with freedom, no longer carrying the burden of judgment. By the fourth week, a shift became noticeable. One morning, Teacher woke and realized he felt lighter. Not physically changed, but the weight in his chest had eased. That day, he trained with complete focus. There was no inner dialogue, no measuring himself against others, no sense of performing. Only movement, only presence. After training, Yamamoto approached him. "You are beginning to understand," he said. "This is what Musashi called Hashin Haijo, the ordinary mind. A mind that does not add unnecessary weight to action. But this is only the start. Removing stones is the first step. Now we must understand why we walk the path at all." Yamamoto gathered all the students for a formal lesson. Teacher sat at the front, his mind clearer than it had been in years. "Today," Yamamoto began, "I will explain why Musashi never burned out, while other warriors, sometimes more talented, sometimes stronger, collapsed under exhaustion." He continued, "Your body has limited physical energy, but spiritual energy functions differently. It renews when aligned and depletes when divided. In future centuries, this will be explained through what is called cognitive load. When the mind splits its attention, doing one task while thinking about another, it consumes enormous energy. When actions do not align with values, when effort is driven by approval instead of purpose, the spirit drains quickly. Musashi aligned everything. Every action served his path and nothing else. That alignment produced effortless energy. Musashi's core principle. Yamamoto unrolled a scroll and read Musashi's words from the Book of Five Rings. "Do nothing which is of no use." These words are simple, Yamamoto said, but the practice is profound. Musashi removed all unnecessary thoughts, actions, and possessions that did not support his path. He did not do this to appear virtuous. He did it to survive. In combat, every extra thought invites death. Every wasted movement creates weakness. But Musashi applied this principle beyond battle. He lived this way. That is the real secret, the Stoic parallel. Centuries later, Yamamoto continued. Roman philosophers known as the Stoics understood this same truth. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not external events. Energy comes from directing what you can control, your perception, your choices, your path. Energy drains when you struggle against what you cannot control, the opinions of others, outcomes, or the need for validation." Musashi mastered this completely. That is why he could fight over 60 duels without fear consuming him. Attachment and energy depletion. Why does seeking validation drain energy? Yamamoto asked. Because you attach your peace to something external. Each time that external condition changes, your inner state must adjust. That constant correction exhausts the spirit. Musashi practiced non-attachment, a core Zen principle. He fought to master the moment, not to earn approval. When you release attachment to results, action becomes free. And free action does not drain energy, it creates it. The flow state. In battle, Yamamoto said, Musashi often entered a state we now call Mushin, no mind. A condition where thought disappears and action flows without obstruction. In this state, effort feels light. Time fades. Energy seems endless. Why? Because there is no split, no internal commentary, no comparison, only direct action. You experience this briefly in training when mind and body finally unify, that moment of effortless movement. Musashi lived in that state. Musashi wrote, "The way of the warrior is found in training, not in motivation, not in emotion, but in training." Motivation is costly. It demands constant renewal. Rhythm, however, requires very little energy. When an action becomes automatic, it no longer drains you. Think about brushing your teeth. You do not need motivation. It happens naturally. It is rhythm, part of who you are. Musashi turned training into rhythm. He did not force himself to practice. He became someone who practiced. That identity required no effort. This is why discipline surpasses motivation. Discipline creates rhythm. Rhythm conserves energy. And conserved energy grows into steady, lasting vitality. Teacher listened carefully. These are not abstract ideas. They were practical observations about how energy truly functions in a warrior's life. Master Yamamoto announced a test. Teacher would spar against Hiroshi, the dojo's strongest student, the same one who had defeated Teacher every time over the past year. The old teacher would have spent the night restless, replaying comparisons, doubting himself. The new teacher did not. He prepared calmly. He sharpened his practice sword, stretched his body, and sat in meditation. No anxiety, no comparison, only preparation. The next morning, the students gathered. Hiroshi stepped forward, confident as always. They bowed and took their positions. Something unusual happened. Teacher did not fight Hiroshi. He responded to the moment. His mind held no comparison, no attachment to outcome. He simply moved. Hiroshi attacked with his usual speed. Teacher flowed around the strikes. No analysis, no hesitation, only response. 3 minutes passed, and something unprecedented occurred. Hiroshi began to tire. His breathing grew heavy. His movements lost sharpness. Teacher, by contrast, looked energized, as if he had just begun. The students murmured. This had never happened before. 5 minutes passed. Hiroshi grew frustrated. He was still landing more strikes, technically winning, but his body showed fatigue. Teacher remained calm. 7 minutes in, Hiroshi stopped, gasping. I need rest. Teacher stood ready, barely winded. Yamamoto ended the match. Enough. Later, Hiroshi approached Teacher, visibly confused. How, he asked. I'm the better fighter, but I'm exhausted. You're not even tired. Teacher replied simply, you fought to win. I fought to stay present. Winning consumes energy. Presence creates it. That evening, Yamamoto addressed the students. What you saw today is the principle Musashi mastered. Energy does not come from strength. It comes from alignment. Hiroshi divided his energy, fighting Teacher while judging himself, fearing loss, and chasing victory. That division drained him. Teacher unified his energy. He stayed present, unattached to outcome, responding moment by moment. That unity produced inexhaustible energy. This is why Musashi fought over 60 duels without burning out. Not because he was the strongest, but because he was the most aligned. Teacher bowed deeply. For the first time, he understood that energy is not something you build. It is something you stop losing. But alignment in controlled sparring was only the beginning. What followed would test whether Teacher truly understood Musashi's teaching, or whether real pressure would pull him back into the old patterns that had drained him his entire life. Yamamoto announced, Teacher, you will spend 3 months at Reigan Temple. The monks there will teach you deeper levels of energy alignment. 2 days later, Teacher climbed toward the mountain monastery. Stone walls, thick mist, and a silence deeper than anything he had known surrounded him. Master Hakuin, the head monk, greeted him. Master Yamamoto says you are learning Judo. Good. Here, you will learn why one walks alone at all. The daily rhythm. The monastery followed a strict schedule. 3 a.m. wake. 3:30 a.m. cold water purification. 4 a.m. Zazen meditation, 2 hours. 5:30 a.m. walking meditation. 6 a.m. breakfast in silence. 7 a.m. manual labor, 4 hours. 11 a.m. lunch. 12 p.m. scripture study. 2 p.m. Zazen meditation, 2 hours. 4 p.m. evening chores. 6 p.m. dinner. 7 p.m. reflection. 8 p.m. sleep. No variation. Every day. For 90 days. The first week was miserable, not physically, as Teacher could endure hard work, but mentally. The sameness, the lack of excitement, the absence of novelty tested him deeply. He realized he had been addicted to stimulation, always seeking something new, different, or exciting. That addiction had quietly drained his energy. The monks taught him a simple truth: rhythm preserves energy. Novelty consumes. I T.by week 3. While carrying water from the well to the kitchen, Tishi's mind wandered. This is pointless, he thought. I came here to learn warrior wisdom, not to carry water. Master Hakuin noticed immediately. You are resisting, he said. That resistance is where energy escapes. He demonstrated carrying water with full presence. No thoughts of preference, no desire to be elsewhere. Only the action itself. Just carrying water. Musashi painted birds, carved sculptures, and practiced calligraphy. not because he valued those pursuits more than combat, but because he brought full presence to whatever he was doing. When you wish to be somewhere else, your energy divides between the present and the imagined. That division creates exhaustion. When you are fully present, energy moves freely. T-shirt trained this way, giving complete attention to every task, even the most ordinary ones. Gradually, he noticed the change. The fatigue had never come from the labor itself. It came from resisting the labor. During morning zazen, something shifted in Tishi's meditation. His mind, usually crowded with thought, became quiet, not through effort, but naturally, like mist fading in sunlight. Within that stillness, an insight emerged, not from conscious thinking, but through awareness itself. This practice, this alignment, those who walk this path across all time are learning what warriors have always known. Energy does not come from the world. It comes from your relationship to the world. In every era, others seek the same understanding. How to stop feeling drained, how to find vitality that does not depend on conditions, how to move forward while the world moves in circles. At presence and purpose, this warrior discipline continues, not as distant history, but as living practice. The method of alignment. The principles of conserving energy. The path of removing stones instead of building strength to carry them. If you are ready, if you recognize that your exhaustion comes from misalignment, not effort, walk with us, not as passive learning, but as active practice. A community of warriors choosing straight paths over scattered movement. Each week, new practices. Each week, deeper alignment. Each week, energy restored, not through rest, but by removing what drains it. Because Musashi's secret is not hidden in temples. It exists in the decision to walk your path alone, unburdened. The thought passed. T-shirt opened his eyes. Around him, the monks remained in meditation. Yet he felt changed, not just having learned a practice, but having joined something timeless. A lineage of warriors who understood that energy comes from within, not from outside. Hakwin smiled at him from across the hall, as if he had witnessed the entire realization and its integration. By month 9, T-shirt had transformed. He woke with energy, not because his sleep had improved, but because he carried no stones. He trained without fatigue, not by forcing himself, but by moving without resistance. He worked for hours, not because tasks were easy, but because he was fully present. The monks reported to Yamamoto, "He is ready. He understands alignment now." After 9 months away, T-shirt returned to the dojo. Master Yamamoto greeted him calmly. "Tomorrow, you face your final test. Not sparring, real combat." A Ronin named Nakamura had been terrorizing nearby villages. Skilled and dangerous, he had defeated every samurai sent against him. Some had died. The local magistrate requested Yamamoto's help. Yamamoto chose T-shirt. That night, T-shirt slept, not from anxiety, but from calm preparation. The old T-shirt would have spiraled with doubt. What if I lose? What if I die? What if I am not ready? Now, his thoughts were simple. I will respond to what is. The outcome is not mine to control. I control only my presence, the confrontation. The next day, in the village square, the Ronin waited. Nakamura stood with confidence, known for ruthless efficiency. T-shirt approached, bowed, and drew his sword. Nakamura laughed. "You are young. You will die young." T-shirt said nothing. He remained centered, fully present. The battle began. Nakamura attacked with brutal intent. Lethal strikes, no hesitation, no restraint. Yet as the clash continued, something unusual became clear. Nakamura started to tire. His breathing grew heavy, frustration showed, and his attacks lost precision. T-shirt, however, remained steady, calm, focused, as if he were only beginning to warm up. This unsettled Nakamura. He was accustomed to crushing opponents through relentless pressure. But T-shirt did not resist force with force. He flowed. He did not push harder. He responded accurately, moment by moment. After 10 minutes, an eternity in combat, Nakamura was gasping. His movements became careless. T-shirt noticed the opening. One clean, exact strike disarmed Nakamura completely. The Ronin dropped to his knees, defeated but alive. Ow! Nakamura struggled to ask. I'm stronger, more experienced. Why are you not exhausted? Teacher calmly returned his sword to its sheath. Because I was not fighting you. I was present to each moment. You fought to win. Winning consumes energy. Presence creates it. The magistrate expressed his gratitude. The villagers celebrated. Teacher did not remain. He walked away quietly. No display, no search for approval. Just as Musashi had done after defeating Sasaki Kojiro. One precise action, then moving on. That evening, Yamamoto addressed the students. What Teacher showed today is Musashi's secret. Musashi fought over 60 duels, many to the death, yet lived to 62 without burning out. Not because he rested more, but because he was fully aligned. His energy came from within, from clarity of purpose, simplicity of action, and non-attachment to outcome. That is why he could fight, create art, write philosophy, train students, and meditate with sustained vitality. Energy is not something you build. It is preserved by removing what drains it. The warrior's truth. Years later, Teacher, now a master himself, reflected on what he had learned. Musashi's secret was never complicated. It was direct and uncompromising. Energy does not come from what you do. It comes from why you do it. When actions align with your true path, when you stop performing for others, comparing yourself, and seeking validation, energy becomes steady and abundant. Not because you gain more, but because you stop losing it. People exhaust themselves by carrying mental stones. Comparison, resentment, perfectionism, divided attention, doing one thing while thinking about another, seeking approval, attaching peace to outcomes, resisting what is, wishing the present were different. Musashi conserved energy by removing everything of no use. Single-pointed presence in each action. Complete detachment from outcomes. Acceptance of reality without resistance. This was not philosophy. It was survival. In real combat, divided attention leads to death. Unnecessary movement creates weakness. Attachment to winning builds tension that slows response. Musashi applied these combat truths to life itself. That is why he never burned out. The truth few want to accept is this. You're not tired because you work too hard. You are tired because you work scattered, unaligned, unfocused, burdened by stones that serve no purpose. The solution is not rest. The solution is realignment. Ask of everything in your life, is this useful to my path? If not, remove it. It does not matter if others value it. It does not matter if you think you should care. If it is not your path, it is a stone. Remove the stones. Walk straight. Energy will follow. The samurai lesson ends where it began. The circle completes. 10 years later, Teacher teaches in his own dojo. A young student approaches, exhausted and burned out, exactly as Teacher once was. Master, the student says, I train hard, but I'm always tired. What is wrong with me? Teacher smiles. He picks up a small stone and places it into the student's palm. Each time you train for approval, you carry this. Each time you compare yourself, another stone. Each time you resist what is stone, stone, stone. The student looks confused. You are not tired from training. Teacher continues. You are tired from carrying weight that serves no purpose. Miyamoto Musashi fought over 60 duels to the death. He trained daily, created art, wrote books, and never burned out because he carried no stones. Teacher stands and walks toward the training hall. Come, he says. I will teach you what Master Yamamoto taught me, what the mountain monks showed me, what Musashi understood centuries ago, and what warriors across all time have discovered. Energy does not come from rest. It comes from alignment, when your actions, beliefs, and path all point in the same direction. When you remove everything of no use, energy becomes steady and unending. He looks directly at the student, though his words seem to reach further than one person. This teaching continues across time. At Presence and Purpose, we keep this warrior discipline alive, not as history, but as practice. Every week, the ancient methods of alignment. Every week, the practice of removing stones. Every week, a path to energy that does not depend on circumstances. If you feel depleted, if you recognize yourself exhausted from carrying useless weight, walk with us. Join warriors across time who discovered that the straight path never drains you. Only running in circles does. Subscribe to the training. Practice with us. Because Musashi's secret is not hidden in scrolls. It is found in the choice to remove stones, walk straight, and not turn back. The student bows deeply. Master, where do I begin? Teacher hands him a broom. Begin by removing what is unnecessary, starting with the belief that you lack something. You already have everything you need. You simply carry too much that does not belong. Remove the stones. Walk straight. Do not tire. This is the warrior's path to lasting energy. Remove stones. Create rhythm. Release attachment to results. Find stillness within movement. Walk your path alone. Carry nothing of no use. This is Musashi's secret. This is how you never burn out.